So round to Bosca.
Right.
And he's going to raise.
Griffin, do you think everyone's going to play relatively honestly right now to kick things off?
I think that that Wellenbach will probably be opening up pretty much hands that he just wants to play. I don't think he's going to have a lot of,
is it open?
you know, informing experience playing, you know,
the
final
passcode
tables
number?
and the like. So he might just sort of like, you know, if he likes a hand to play, he'll open it up. And, you know, I think Strelitz is going to have to play pretty tight with Chino on his left, who likes to see a lot of flops. Interesting to see Bosca elect to open up this combination into Ream's big blind, but wasn't willing to open up the king 7 off at the cutoff when he just had to get through Wellenbach.
I know we can't see the
Strelitz.
flop on screen right now, but Chino's flop Broadway.
Yeah, it's a big one.
No surprise to see a quick call here from Ream. Him check raising a ace jack queen board would really get the alarm bells going for Bosca. So
I like the quick call there too, because I think a lot of times that can come off as that you're on a draw. So as like
yeah, or that you have middling strength like a queen X hand or a
yeah,
raggy ace.
just a hand you
maybe a jack 10.
Pre-decided you wanted to see another card.
Yeah, it's difficult for Bosca not decide to barrel here. He's gonna, but you know, he's gonna expect some folds from some queen X's. You know, I mean, Chino's gonna call queen 7 suited from the big. You know, jack 9 off, hands like this that really won't be able to withstand pressure on the turn. But and also Bosca knows that he blocks the king 10. So there aren't a lot of massive hands that Ream should have here on this board from the big blind. And Ream just loving life right now. Complete rainbow texture.
So the board pairs on the river.
Hard to know.
Left with just 10 high.
Yeah, and just under a pot-sized bet left. He is reaching for chips, and it's hard to blame him. I mean, Ream's not often going to call twice with just a jack here. So a lot of the times he is going to have an ace-X on the flop, calling twice.
Forward motion there.
Maybe trying to get a bit of a read from Chino.
Not the bad river.
What do you think this is?
Good
Football,
river,
James?
Yep.
Forward motion.
Final.
There is a single big blind posted by the button. It's a 6 max cash game that you can play right now.
How much do you win for a royal?
I think a royal is still at the top of the table.
All right.
So let's pick up the action on hand number 10 of the final table. Strelitz opened to 160K with Queen Jack. Brian Altman defended from the small blind. He's flopped top pair. Strelitz with bottom pair. And Altman check calls the flop for 150K. 8 of diamonds on the turn. Strelitz picks up a flush draw to go with his pair and his gut shot.
Actually a really good barrel card here for Strelitz. When you look at the board texture and the positions, Altman is going to have so many king X, you know, weak ace X hands when he calls the flop. And Strelitz with that queen of diamonds is going to have some flushes. And so he knows that if he bets big enough here, and especially on the river, he should get some folds from some weak aces and some weak kings. So, you know, there is definitely a situation where Strelitz just decides to take the free card because he only has 2x pot left. But I have to imagine that this is shaping up to be a good spot for him to put the 3 barrels in, something we know he's certainly capable of, but he is going to elect to take the free card. And he gets there on the river. Definitely something Daniel, I think, would be considering is the fact that Altman is not one that you would call a believer. He likes to call people down, and, you know, Strelitz doesn't want to go out crashing and burning, representing only the top of his range against the strongest player on the table. But he has gotten here on the river. Interesting to see if Altman elects to fire out a blocky bet. He is going to check. And Joe, there's 780,000 in the pot. Guess his sizing. If you get it between 20,000, I owe you a beer.
Strelitz?
Yeah, was 780 out there.
1.65 million behind, 780 out there. Trip jacks. He's going to go for 625.
Okay, I'm going to say 475. Well, you went big, so I thought we'd stay, you know, we'd stay in the big leagues. But I quite like this sizing from Strelitz, actually, if you really think about it. He just wants, he's expecting him to have King X so often, you know. Sometimes you would expect him to bet an ace on the river Altman. So because he puts him on King X, he wants to make the price good enough that he's going to get a call, and he is going to get it. So I like that little milk job from Daniel.
Strelitz opening under the gun. He's raised to 160,000 with Queen 10. 6-5 of hearts for Brian Altman.
Brian's been a little quiet so far in most of the coverage we've seen him in. I would say I'm a little surprised by that, but I also just think he's, quite frankly, been a bit card dead. And that can happen sometimes.
Altman's always got a stern look on his face when he's playing, but I find him to be one of the more friendly guys.
Agreed.
Walking up and down the hallways. Always smiling. Was very happy to give me the little tidbit about being bad at pub trivia. He like came back and told me a better way to say it even.
Oh, that's cute.
He's like, no, say it this way.
So Vexler's called in position on the button, and these two will go heads up to the flop.
Now, if you want Brian Altman to win, type in Alt F.
Wow, top two for Vexler. That's the up and down draw for Strelitz.
With the Queen of Hearts, too. This is an Action Jackson flop.
Here we go.
And I like this check call here from Strelitz. You know, he knows that Vexler is going to be so on base so often here on the Jack-9 board. And oftentimes players will bet their draws. So it's nice to kind of have your draw disguised here. You know, if Vexler has a hand like King Jack or Jack 9 and, you know, Strelitz turns an 8 or a king, looks like his range is capped and he's not often going to have a Queen 10. So I like this check call. Now if he check raises, then we're going to be in a very different kind of territory given the hand that Vexler has. But I think the plan here with ICM considerations is just a check call. And I'm right.
Strelitz calls the 135,000. Ace of hearts on the turn. Plenty of outs for Strelitz. 30% equity. Checks the action a second time.
You think Vexler goes for bigger sizing here, Griffin? It was like a quarter of the pot. No, he goes for the sizing of 0.
Here, yeah, because...
And there is the flush for Strelitz.
And the straight.
Because Vexler is also very intelligent, and he recognizes that Strelitz is going to have some flush draws when he check calls the flop. And also he's going to have some value hands that will comfortably fold to a bet on the turn. We're thinking like, you know, Queen Jack of clubs, for instance, facing a bet on the turn here is probably not going to continue. So why not just check, wait for that brick river instead of betting, inflating the pot where you're either behind or the guy's going to continue and has a good chance of getting there, which he did. So I think Vexler has lost the minimum here and will pretty comfortably, although he's looking like, really, man? I had 2 pair. I still have 2 pair.
Try betting the turn.
Why, so we could have lost more, man?
I love playing results. It is my favorite.
No.
425,000, the value bet from Daniel Strelitz.
Now, Vexler's trying to think about what kind of bluff Strelitz can have here. And there aren't a ton. Some Jack X's that have, you know, now been really shrink down with the 4 hearts. Maybe something like 2 black 10s. Would have certainly check called the flop and decided maybe to bluff it on the river here.
Worth pointing out at this stage, Griffin, that we are still playing with the 30-second shot clock. Vexler is using one of his 6 time bank cards, buying an additional 30 seconds.
Oh, it was a time bank card. I thought it was an F-off card. When you play it, your opponent has to F-off.
Strelitz should have a lot of King 10, Queen 10 type hands.
There's the
include
fold.
heart.
Deuces.
240.
Been raised to 240K.
Yeah, you've been seeing Vexler, who has a similar stack size to Wellenbach, take the min raise option every time. That's a very tight
240.
fold.
Yes.
But again, it is these ICM considerations. If you jam there as Bosca, you get called. It's very disastrous. Ace-9 isn't going to play very well against someone who's willing to call off 30 bigs.
Well, Wellenbach called with 10-9 in the big and has flopped top pair. Anne-Marie tweets, Nova Scotia is cheering for you, Scott.
I think the whole world should be cheering for Scott, not just Nova Scotia.
He has become the people's hero in the PCA main event. So Vexler's continued for 330,000. Wellenbach calls. And we're going to the turn with 1.32 million in the middle. It's small, but it's not a deuce. Vexler has picked up a gut shot straight draw. Decides to check back the turn. And the river is a deuce. Vexler, rivers a set.
It's a good check by Wellenbach, though. I don't know if he's going to be able to fold to this bet just because there's a couple missed draws from the flop. Depending on the sizing which Vexler chooses, Wellenbach might pay him off, unfortunately. Vexler might be considering going on the bigger sizing just because of the missed draws that I'm talking about, and it just polarizes his range, makes it look like it could potentially be weighted towards the bluff side of things.
875.
Yeah, Vexler goes big.
We've seen Wellenbach make great calls for his tournament life. Can he make a really good fold in this spot for a significant portion of his chip stack?
I call.
Scott calls. Pays off the value bet. That noise speaks volumes.
Badly played by me.
Scott Wellenbach is now the shortest
875.
stack at the table.